did make a Tarrasque that's made out of tiramisu. I just have to comment about that.
Ooh.
Did you give it like a fancy Tarrasque name?
Yes, I did.
A,
I called it what was it? A tiramisu. A
Terra?
Tarrasque misu.
Terrorasque
Yeah.
misu?
Yeah.
Terror misu.
Okay, I can
Tiramisu.
definitely see like one of those pulpy like film posters with like a tiramisu monster called the Tiramisu.
Yep. I mean, look,
The
I wrote
only
a
filling.
D&D adventure about a kaiju turducken. I don't have any regrets.
Well,
And I named it Queen Faldra, okay? I went really hard on the memes.
oh my god. Well, speaking of giant kaiju turduckens, what's up, everyone?
Solid segue.
I'm Daniel, and welcome to Asians Read. The first Saturday of every month, we'll be continuing to try to read Kara-Tur, The Eastern Realms, and providing our own critical analysis of the depictions of Asian cultures and people within this campaign setting. Now, a couple of things. We skipped last month. We weren't able to do it, but we're back. So I want to start by kind of framing what this series is about, right? Everything we do on Asians Represent is intended to create conversation, introduce new perspectives, and create spaces for Asian voices in the TTRPG industry. Now, when we talk about Kara-Tur, L5R, Al-Qadim, Oriental Adventures, and most recently, as in like yesterday, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, we are providing critical analysis, but we are not attacking you, the viewer, the listener, the consumer of that product, right? Stories are like people. You can love them, but it doesn't make them perfect, no matter how much you try to overlook their flaws. And so what we're trying to do is help you become a more critical and insightful consumer of these products. Now, a couple of things that we want to frame. When we are looking at Oriental Adventures, and this is something that Steve and I kind of came up with when we were reading the Oriental Adventures Handbook earlier this year, there are 4 fundamental problems with the Oriental Adventures Handbook, and in general depictions of Asians in AD&D. And it kind of extends into D&D 5th edition as well. The first one is that the world building is based on harmful real-world stereotypes and the reductive blending of cultures, ethnic groups, and time periods. Now, this isn't the result of racism or malicious intent, but rather an example of how the appreciation of cultural stereotypes can result in the creation of a tool for creating an other. Okay, and this itself can be harmful or problematic as it places certain themes in very prominent positions, and it conveys the importance of tropes to readers who might not know about these cultures. The second one, Asians are seen as violent and savage. Violent in that they're just constantly tackling horses, or savage in that they're, all the Mongolians are just riding around on horses and killing people. No, that's not the case. Kind of related to that, Asians are seen as uncivilized and in need of saving. These Asian campaign settings are often depicted as places where foreign, Western characters can come and save the day. And then the last one, Asians are seen as objects of fetishization. So, we see like very poor portrayals of Asian characters in these sort of fetishized positions. So those are the kind of 4 fundamental problems that we're working with when we are reading through Kara-Tur, The Eastern Realms. Now, last time, we were on page 5 of the PDF if you're following along. This is episode 3 of this podcast / stream. So I think we're making solid ground. We're catching up to the Al-Qadim folks who have made it past chapter 1. But they've had more episodes than us. So in the last episode, we kind of started talking about the monasteries and temples of the Shou priesthood. Basically all of their kung fu temples. We ended on the Strong Claw Monastery because I went back and I watched the last one, and the last half of that episode is us laughing about bear-style kung fu and tackling horses.
Yeah.
Now, I believe we are on the Order of Silence now. So our goal for today is to get through Order of Silence, and Makenzie is like, can we get through all of the monk orders?
Yeah.
So our goal is to get past Order of Silence, Order of the Nimble Hunter, White Crane Temple, and Order of the Dragon Monastery. Then we'll be getting into like government and politics, which I think will be a really interesting discussion, except I just looked ahead and it said the Emperor Kai of Shou, Qin, which is supposed to be China, is a 10th level samurai. So there's some things to talk about there.
Things to look forward to.
And I think that's
So much.
yeah, but I think that's a solid. I think that's a solid example of how earlier books like Oriental Adventures kind of set a framework for which all of the other products have to work. So since Oriental Adventures included the sort of the knightly character of the samurai, that means that any other publication that is related to Oriental Adventures has to use that nomenclature. So I personally wouldn't dwell on that here. I just thought it was funny. But having the Emperor be a 10th level samurai isn't the fault of the Kara-Tur book. It's actually the fault of Oriental Adventures for creating that framework. And it's a perfect example of why, the harm from a single book will, kind of stack and compound into other products. So that's why we're so diligent in our read-through of Kara-Tur, because Kara-Tur is still mentioned in 5th edition D&D in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide and the Player's Handbook, actually, and the Dungeon Master's Guide.
And the cookbook.
And the cookbook.
And the cookbook.
We literally last night,
noodles.
we were reading through the Kara-Tur noodles recipe on our Discord. And I don't know if you folks, because I think Makenzie, you talked about it a bit. Did you folks actually read the flavor text for the Kara-Tur noodles?
I think I did, and then I immediately blotted it out of my
Okay,
memory.
so this kind of relates to Kara-Tur, the Eastern Realms here. One of the things that they do here. So I'll read this out to you, and then we can go back to the Order of Silence. But Kara-Tur noodles. Few nations on the planet Toril are as powerful or influential as the human empire of Shou, found in the vast region of Kara-Tur. While this region boasts distinct religions and a proud culture, it also possesses an equally strong culinary tradition. Although there is sparse interaction or conflict between the city-states of the Sword Coast and Kara-Tur, many of its tea leaves, such as Pale Jade, Fim Fim, Dragon's Eye, and Longjing, are imported in significant quantities by Faerunian traders, and certain dishes, including various noodles, have made the long migration west as well. While you won't find this stir-fried entree on just any tavern menu, it has found its way into the more modern eateries of cultural epicenters such as Waterdeep. A heaping bowl of noodles flash-cooked in a deep oil-drizzled skillet, along with chunks of chicken, vegetables, and a salty soy sauce, or garum, a fish-based sauce, has become a popular change of pace from the traditional roasts and soups of the Sword Coast. So what they said was, at the very beginning, they're like, Kara-Tur has religion and culture, so exotic. They also have culinary traditions, so
Surprise,
exotic.
they have food.
Surprise.
Surprise!
But also,
Why did they have what?
but also this recipe isn't even a Kara-Tur recipe. It's a recipe that you would eat in Waterdeep.
It's like Panda Express.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like,
Yeah, it's
last night I was like,
express level of I read the recipe and I was like, really? Could they have not at least have consulted one person about this?
Well, the recipe is also just like super bland. It's just like,
oh yeah, it's super bland.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, who wrote this cookbook? Because I really need to like have words about it.
there's so much potential. But anyways, I thought that was very interesting in how they framed it as a recipe that you would eat not in Kara-Tur but in Waterdeep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is interesting. But anyways, if people were like, what is Kara-Tur? And the point I was trying to make is when people are like, oh, what Kara-Tur noodles? What is this Kara-Tur? And they go and they kind of go on D&D Beyond, because that's probably the best way to find out. Mm-hmm. And they'll search Kara-Tur and they'll just find like the honor rules. They'll find the Kara-Tur description in Sword Coast Guide. They'll find Kara-Tur names in the Player's Handbook. And then they'll be like, I want to know.
Subclass.
Yep. And then they'll be like, I want to know more about the world of Kara-Tur, because that sounds neat.
And then they're like, here's 6 different types of monks.
And then they'll go to this book. So that's why, I'm very grateful for the fact that, the 4 of you are joining me on this journey to read this book, because this book still has a great effect on how people play D&D now, even though it's from an edition of D&D that many people are not playing. So that's why it's important. But anyways, let's go to the Order of Silence. And we'll just be silent. No.
Okay.
I was
You got it.
in my head, I was hoping, I was like, let's go to the Order of Silence. And then I hope everybody catches that subtle cue to just be like, don't say anything.
This entire
Moment of
paragraph.
silence here.
Yeah.
Actually, the entire section is just a bunch of ellipses.
Okay, so this temple of the Cobra School is the unapproved is of the unapproved monastic orders, possibly related to the temple of Quiet Sliding. Sorry, I was.
Is it like a cha-cha slide, but like everyone's just real quiet? It's like
Really quiet.
So I'm dyslexic. So when I was reading it, I had to. Makenzie, you did this too. You went and leaned into your screen. I had to like stop and be like, the Temple of Quiet Sliding. Okay, it chew you on. 2 centuries ago.
Moonwalks.
I don't know.
everyone just moonwalks.
I'm hoping that the Temple of Quiet Sliding will come up in later on in the book, so we can actually provide some context. Because right now, and I think one of you mentioned this before, they're just kind of throwing names at us without any context.
Yep.
As a kind of way to like flesh out the world, but it's a lot of superficial detail. Anyways, 2 centuries ago, the monk Huo Seng, Fiery Hate. I don't know if that translates.
Also doesn't sound very monk-like.
It doesn't sound.
Also, again,
But this
angry.
This is the unapproved monk order.
That's true. Quiet
true.
sliding.
Yeah, they're unapproved. They are an offshoot of the Quiet Sliding. So they were like, I don't want to just be silent when I'm sliding. I just want to be silent all the time. So they were the Order of Silence.
But also very angry.
But also very
Also
angry.
very angry.
So maybe they were angry that they could only be quiet when they're sliding. We'll see. 2 centuries ago, the monk, Fiery Hate, returned from his travels to find his large, prosperous merchant clan had been wiped out by the armies of Prince Shin Ginsen.
Ginsen.
That's
very Japanese.
very
sounding.
Japanese sounding.
It's a very,
Okay. Ostensibly, the wealthy Tianlun family had given aid to the forces of Prince Xinlu. But it was more likely that the avaricious Prince Ginsen, that's thrown me off, killed them so that he could seize their properties for his war effort. Returning to his home poor and clanless, Huo Seng, a student of the Cobra School of Kung Fu, gathered together other homeless men and shared his knowledge with them. This was the foundation of the Order of Silence, also known as the Order of the Cobra, which has survived to this day.
All right.
okay.
What? Okay.
So
Okay,
lots of political backstabbing and basically Hosung basically decided to have a secret monk order to basically rallied with all their other homeless people. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't. Okay.
What's the motivation?
Because there's this backstabbing, which is all over history, so like it's believable. But what is Huo Seng's relationship to? I guess his clan was wiped out. Oh, is he Sasuke?
Oh god, oh no. Yes, he is. He's Sasuke who's going through
He's
the
Sasuke,
revenge
and then
streak of Itachi.
That means
Oh, God.
that means that Shin Ginsen is Itachi. Sorry. The monks of the order vow never to speak until all injustice is eradicated from the lands. In the wars between Shou and Tulung, they defended the local people with incredible ferocity, showing mercy to neither side. When the generals of the armies tried to crush the monks, they seemed to slither away into the wilderness.
Slide.
Moonwalks away.
Can you imagine an army just moonwalking out?
Well, no, it's not like GIF of like Homer disappearing into the bush, except it's all these D&D monks who are moonwalking away to the forest.
Yep.
They go retreat.
And very
Silently.
quiet about it too.
Yeah, very quiet.
Angry.
Finding brute force useless, the nobles of the Shou attempted to court the order with rich gifts of land and money. These Hoseng,
Use.
this grammatically is very weird. Used
Wow.
to
Yeah.
build a great monastery to Chancheng, although he would never, to the last, choose a side in the conflict. This is why the order remains unapproved by the bureaucracy. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like
So bureaucracy validates an order. Okay.
I mean, in many ways, that makes sense, I guess,
Yeah.
especially in
Well-
historical China. But, like, I think the thing here is, like, they tried to bribe him with land and money, and then he took the land and money and built a great monastery, but then didn't decide to choose a side in the conflict, despite taking these bribes.
Most Chinese nobles would take offense to that and decide to just wipe them out.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, okay.
Also, there's like a weird grammatical thing where, okay, so we know that Huo Sang is a person, but it
Mhm.
seems like these Huo Sang, it seems like all of the homeless monk men that he like gathered are now all
They've
Huo Sang?
they've all taken on his name.
Yeah,
I
they've
think
all
that I
taken
think
on
it's
his
supposed to be
name?
like the. Yeah, I
I
think
think it's supposed to be Hoseng used these
These,
to build a great
yeah.
monastery.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're trying to say.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
grammatically, the way you're reading it, it's like, whoa, all of these
Whoa.
homeless men who became
Did
monks
they all
took on his
become- did
name.
They all become Hassan? Is that really what it is?
But you know what? Honestly, that's kind of neat if they all took on his name, because it's like, who's the
Yeah.
real one?
I am
That would be really
Spartacus.
cool.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that's making me most upset about this is that like it's kind of like the concept of like having a group in the world that like is nonverbal or specifically chooses not to speak or use verbal communication, whether it that's super cool for people who maybe just aren't nonverbal or struggle with being verbal, or people who choose to do that. That's super cool and provides a really awesome way to world build and add things in like sign language and accessibility. That's super freaking cool.
If you talk about that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
If you
Not
talk
yet.
about that stuff.
No,
Not
nothing.
there.
But here's the thing.
It's-
They've like, you make a very, very valid point. That's really neat. If that had been written in the exact way that you had just said.
Mhm.
Here they're just like, they've just chosen to take a vow of silence until injustice has been eradicated. And they kind of stop there. It's like they were like, I feel like they had like a mood board and they were like, Order of Silence, that's a cool name. How do we justify the name? But also the Order of Silence, aka Temple of the Cobra. Like, so how do we evoke these two names? The first one is like, well, easy, they'll take a vow of silence. And then they slither away into the wilderness. I think this would have been a perfect place to say, like, hey, they have a really unique form of sign language that only members of their order know. Kind of like, like in D&D, the thieves' cant, or like the druidic speech this would be their example of sign language, and that would be super neat. And that's just such a missed opportunity here.
Instead, it's just more quiet sliding. Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Maybe that's I don't.
So, and then it says, unfortunately, power and hatred have corrupted the charitable ideals of the Silent Order. Now, up until this point, they haven't really talked about charity. They've talked about, fighting injustice with violence, and they've talked about taking bribes and building great temples out of these bribes. So yeah, while the monks still protect the common people from the depredations of the nobles, it has also become a source of fear throughout the southern provinces. Travelers are welcome at the temple as long as they accept the arrogant ways of the monks and do not disturb the local people. The cobra, lowercase, the cobra is considered sacred to this order. Oh, I see. The cobra is considered sacred to this order, and many roam the grounds of the temple freely. It is forbidden to kill one, even in self-defense. There is a 60% chance of encountering a cobra during any given day, but only a 5% chance that the cobra will attack if encountered, and they are very used to humans.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
That's such
We
an-
made
I like
some
that
good game
statistics.
mechanics.
That's some
Yeah,
some
it's just like
that's some,
roll-
right in the paragraph.
that's some AD&D
Roll
shit
for
right
Cobra
there.
Bite. Yeah, roll for Cobra Bite. Like roll a D100. Give me Tell me.
But it's just like it's literally like telling the GM like when they go to the Cobra Temple, you have to roll to see if they'll encounter a Cobra and to see if they get attacked.
Yeah, and
also,
then
like,
that
if
would
you
just
sit
lead to
down on a-
so many fun things afterwards.
Yeah, and then there's other things to talk about. Let's finish this paragraph. The monks of the order admire dangerous people, but hold little regard for arms and armor. One reason they have never developed a Sohei brotherhood within the temple. The fare is excellent and plentiful, featuring many unusual specialties of the South, except, of course, Cobra. Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Oh boy!
Oh, wow.
Boy! Well, there's so much in those 2 paragraphs. My God!
That was like one paragraph, and they're like, "There's lots of snakes, but also like."
But also, like, you won't be eating snake there. I feel. Oh my god.
And also all this
Jeez.
random stuff about like armor and the relationships within their structure, but also like, yeah, you're not gonna eat snake.
I feel like
What?
me reading the Kara-Tur noodles recipe was the perfect lead up into this. Unintentionally.
It's like this. Let's break down this culinary part, because it's like let's talk about how the fare is good and exotic and delicious, but no snake. Like, but
And
what else could you
unusual.
possibly eat?
Well, yeah, because they said like unusual specialties of the South. Because I think we all know what people might be like. Oh, dog. Like people are gonna start thinking that, because it's like, but they can't eat cobra because the cobra is sacred to them. But they're gonna eat everything else. But the thing is, they're like unusual specialties of the South. The South of what? Like, we've looked at this map, and it's like
Which South are we referring
Like,
to?
is snake a big thing in the south of wherever? Like,
I mean,
are we supposed to be surprised?
I've eaten snake, and
I've
it's
eaten
not that
snake.
exotic. It's not that exotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
pretty
had
tasty.
snake. It's a very lean meat. You gotta like stew it, maybe slow cook.
It's bony.
I think I've
Very
had
bony.
I've had good sausage.
Prepare for a
I
lot of
believe.
bones.
Ooh.
Yeah, but like, here's the thing. I love how they say unusual specialties of the South, because if this is in the South, because this is in the southern provinces, these wouldn't be unusual. These would be foods that are understood by the people of this region.
Yeah, it's
Unless
not
they're
like-
trying to frame the temple as having its own unique culinary traditions that are modifications of southern cuisine.
Didn't say it though.
Well, they didn't say it.
Say it though.
No.
But also,
it's
it's
just-
funny because
yeah.
Southern Chinese food is the most common food in North America. If you're looking at Chinese
Yes.
culinary traditions, it's the most common one
Yeah.
here. So it's the least exotic of the Chinese culinary traditions. Since we started at the bottom of that paragraph, let's work our way up. We kind
This
of
random statement about like liking dangerous people but not arms and armor and not having a Sohei brotherhood, like, what does that have to do with the snakes or the food?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it all seems kind
Yeah.
of thrown together.
And another thing.
Like a
and
bad
another
stir
thing.
fry.
yeah, I
It's like
think
the- like
again, this is a tie-in to Oriental Adventures, because they talk about how the Sohei are like, they're like the Asian paladins. They're like protectors of monasteries and temples and stuff like that. So I think that this is just kind of their way of showing how the Order of Silence and the Cobra Temple are different from other monasteries, in that they don't have this order that you would expect at them. It's just a really awkward place to put it in there. It's like they admire dangerous people, but they have little regards for arms and armors. But they don't explain why they hold little
Yeah.
regard for arms and armor, right? We talked about, we were actually like, Emma, you were in this discussion. We were having a discussion on our Discord server yesterday about Cyberpunk, like the video game that comes out next week, and how the Asian gang in Cyberpunk, they all have katanas, and they're never depicted with guns.
What?
mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is kind of a segue into this, but like,
Sorry.
you have to have.
Right.
Oh, that's okay. You have to have good
Punch a clip.
reasoning. You have to have good reasoning for why they have little regard for arms and armor. Otherwise, you're just saying that like they're just really good with their hands and feet, and knees and elbows and head. But why? Right? I think if you think about like kung fu temples and kung fu orders, they are very proficient with weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So there's got to be a reason why they don't, and they just kind of just say no. They don't like them. They just admired, but an admiration of dangerous people doesn't really tie into the fact that you don't use weapons and armor. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
Go ahead, Makenzie. Sorry.
The reason that the only reason I can see, and it sort of ties into one of the points you mentioned about Orientalism and then exotifying Asians as dangerous and savage, is that people like to believe that proficiency in blacksmithing and arm and like iron weapons equates to order and civilization. And these are the, like, as someone mentioned in chat, these are like the quote unquote evil monks. These are they're protected as like the hateful and dangerous, and they're portrayed as that savage stereotype. And so they have little regard for arms and armor, because like plate mail and and armor and all that stuff is like, oh, that's signs of society,
civility.
Civility, because that's the European standard of like the knight in shining armor and sort of deal. And it purposefully ignores a lot of the really good and skillful weapons that were created throughout Asia, as well as the variety of weapons and the variety of fighting styles, as well as armor. Like, we had so much armor.
Yeah.
Yep.
We had so much armor.
Yeah.
Not all of it was iron based, but we had real good armor, y'all.
I think everyone should just go on YouTube and search up Ranton and watch Ranton's videos about the Shaolin Temple. Honestly, that guy's a legend. So here's the thing, though, and Makenzie, you brought this up. This is something that we see in current edition of D&D. The distinction, and I mean, it's a little bit better than it was before, but in 3rd edition D&D, because I know, Emma, you've never played D&D, in 3rd edition at 3.5, there was like simple, martial, and exotic weapons. Those were the 3 categories. And they were all very arbitrary. Now we just have simple and martial weapons. But the explanation for what is a simple and martial weapon is it's a little weird. If you take that sort of game design principle and you let people go and you create their own D&D products, they go and then they use these same categories, simple and martial, so that they are compatible with what is the mainstream D&D, which is the official products. So here you're basically saying they don't use simple or martial weapons at all. So I think later on we're going to hopefully have a chapter on weapons so we can talk about that. But that's something I want us to keep in the audience too. I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. How are they portraying the use of arms and armor here? Because Makenzie, you brought up a super good point. This is a way of othering them and very subtly saying, oh yes, they're because in the writer's room, I'm sure they're like, oh, they're too good for arms and armor, right? They're too good for that. They don't need that. But that's not how it reads. Now, when we talk about that, we talk about like the lack of civility. This is juxtaposed against the last paragraph, because I kind of read ahead, and they talk about how the monks sleep in comfortable rooms and often have personal servants and stuff like that. But we still need to unpack this paragraph. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just like, I think there's also like an element of like, I guess, genderized roles being placed here, especially when we unpack the sentence, like they admire dangerous people. And like throughout all of this, there's definitely a sense of violence like going throughout this entire section, maybe just because like everyone's fighting. But I mean, this sense of like, oh, this all cis male, I assume, like group of monks, basically, this is how your adventurers could maybe, form an alliance with them. Like they maybe think that you're dangerous too, as any like righteous dude ought to be, like macho dude. So it definitely kind of like builds this idea of like this uncivilized, to kind of bounce off what Makenzie said about like the lack of armor, this uncivilized, pure idea of like machismo, essentially, where we don't need armor. We're dangerous without it. Like, this is how we regain and keep respect by portraying ourselves as these incredibly dangerous, like very scary people, like scary monk order who only need to use our fists and communicate without words. I definitely feel like it kind of ties into that sort of toxic masculinity thing of like, we don't talk about our feelings. We just punch people.
we just punch people, and we live in this dope temple, and there are just cobras everywhere, and there's a 5% chance they might attack you.
And we
it's like a
completely
toxic
just took the bribe
masculinity.
and just said F them.
Yeah.
This is like toxic masculinity temple, essentially.
God, it's it's like what is it? Toxic YouTuber mansions in LA.
Oh, it's like a TikTok mansion.
It's exactly what it is.
There's cobras everywhere.
This is like the Jake Paul house.
Yeah.
The Jake Paul house.
Oh God.
Oh God.
Ugh. Okay, well that's what it is in my head now. Thank you.
Ow.
We'll just moonwalk into the
Just
moonwalk.
Let's
past the cobras.
You can only moonwalk in this entire mansion. You can't do it you cannot traverse any other way.
It's just they're okay. So like before, they were like, we'll fight against order. Then they take a bribe, build a temple, and become arrogant a-holes, and then who just keep the cobra part is like, yeah, I get that they're trying to make this place seem with like, scary and dangerous and exotic, very Temple of Doom. But then like they put the 60% chance you'll encounter a cobra and a 5% chance it'll attack you is just comical.
Yeah.
Like, there's cobras everywhere, but they're used to people, so it's okay.
Roll a D100 to see if you get attacked. Okay, combat time.
I just imagine like there's like the scholar who did this research like sat in this temple for a while, just like observing all of the different instances and mathematically charting like, okay, this is a 5% chance. I observed precisely 5% attacks amongst 100 different encounters.
It's like there's a stack of paper. It's all tables and charts, and it's just every day. It's like chronologue of every snake-related incidents.
See, I don't even think like Cobra Commander in G.I. Joe just has cobras slithering around, but they do here. So let's get to the last paragraph. So, the current abbot is Koizu, Sly Words, a small, slight, quick man. Politically agile as well as an outstanding martial artist. That is really weird to read. He supports the traditions of the temple, the many hours of meditation, kung fu practice, and temple chants and ceremonies. But menial labor is now done only by novices or hired labor. The monks sleep in comfortable rooms and often have personal servants. The vow of silence is less strictly enforced and seems to be totally absent among the higher ranks of the order. Makenzie, you're going to say something?
No, I'm just... God, the one cool thing that I mentioned earlier. Oh, it's gone now.
It's gone now, yeah.
It's like, here's this awesome thing. And here it is in the trash can 20 seconds later.
Yeah. And also let's include some hierarchy in there.
Yeah.
Let's include some hierarchy. Let's completely just like reversal all the things we just said and just go off on that. And it's just like, so you did all this build up for what?
So here's the thing. It's just like, is this really a monastery at this point?
Sounds like a snake-filled like Airbnb.
Really?
It's a snake-filled frat house.
It's a snake-filled frat house.
Oh my God.
So instead of robot house, it's snake house.
Oh my God.
Just like side note, I was an RA in college, and some kid, like, it was the only dorm that allowed like pets, and this kid drove up with all like 14 boa constrictors that he bred. Like, he was breeding them. He was an aerospace engineer person, but also bred snakes. And we were like, no, you can't have them all here. So he took them to the frat house that his older brother was in.
And they just let them go.
He apparently just left 14 boa constrictors.
I think this episode is going to be called The Snake-Filled Frat House of Kara-Tur. That's
which is a thing that happens. So I just wanted to let you know.
oh my god.
Oh,
I don't know if I'm thrilled or horrified that there is a real world equivalent.
So it was really funny.
Resemblance.
I was just like, I'm just gonna take this note, and I just typed it into my browser just so I'd remember it. And I hit enter, and it Google searched snake-filled frat house of Kara-Tur, and the first 4 things are giant snake, Forgotten Realms wiki, layers of the abyss, Forgotten Realms wiki, Kara-Tur shaking events, candlekeep.com, and oh no, and then Forgotten Realms bibliography and Dragon Magazine issue 121. Yeah.
Honestly, but now the order doesn't sound like an order anymore. It sounds like a mafia. Like that's what it literally sounds like. It sounds like a mafia. Like they terrorize. Like people are still, the normal people are like, they're not terrified of them. They apparently are a buffer between the like lay people and the bureaucracy, but it's still like, but people are still like, oh, you don't want to cross them. So that reads like Godfather mafia stuff to me.
Yeah.
At least
But
in terms of,
but is this
yeah.
is this a monastery? It's because this isn't this is no longer a workplace of monastic individuals. This isn't a place of worship. This is just a castle.
It sounds like
it's just a castle.
some
it's like squatters.
monastery
There's a bunch
stuff
of
is
snake
happening.
squatters.
The snake squatters.
Yeah, I guess they're meditating and practicing kung fu,
Yeah.
and then they're chanting.
What I find tricky with this is there's no sense of time. Like I thought they were describing it as it is, but suddenly they're like, oh no, there's a different abbot. And this is what they do now. It's like, oh, so it's no longer the person you just spent a lot of time talking about. They're no longer in charge. Are they alive?
Yeah, there is no sense of time
Yeah.
at all. It's like, and now this.
Yeah. They don't, lots of snakes, they don't eat them.
It's
This
like
is- yeah.
it feels like one of those things that's like all the different components is a bunch of sticky notes just compiled together. Like you said, it feels like a mood board where here's these great things we put on the mood board, and then we just put it into some kind of order of some variety, and here we go.
Yeah. I just think that I think it's interesting because they don't really talk about what else happens. Because, like, if you think about monastery, right here, it's just like, okay, their monastery consists of a place to train in kung fu, a place to meditate, and a place to chant. And they have rooms to sleep in, and they have servants. But like, what
chant
else
about
goes
what?
there? Like, but chant about what? Do they have a library? Do you have a repository of their own knowledge? Why are they still called the Order of Silence if they're not silent? And they are, very socially public. I would assume that the abbots, since they have all this clout, go out and they interact with people. Why would you come to the Order of Silence if if the leadership doesn't practice what they preach?
I mean, if I were to create like a story hook, it would be like you're coming to the Order of Silence to convince these monks to work with you against a bureaucracy. Like that seems to be the only thing that they seem to actively oppose from time to time, or like some other tyrant maybe. I don't know. Like I think that's all they do.
Yeah.
Snakes.
But they become, but it makes no sense because they go from, unfortunately, power and hatred has corrupted them, and it's like then it's like here's the current abbot who doesn't seem to indicate any of those things. And it's like, okay, so where are we in this?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a tourist thing. You just come and see the snakes. You roll to see if you get an encounter, and then you go.
And then you go.
Supposedly anger a bunch of monks so they can then try to beat you up.
Or it's just like, or it's like the adventuring party's like, we're dangerous people. We should go here.
Yes, we're dangerous people. Let us go to the Temple of Toxic Masculinity.
But anyways, let's move on because we've got Order of the Nimble Hunter, the Crane, and we've got the Dragon. So we've got an hour to get these done.
We can do it.
We can do it. We can do it. We'll do this for Makenzie because Mackenzie's like, let's get past the monasteries.
I want to try. Let's go.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Order of the Nimble Hunter. This temple-based order is located in the imperial capital of Kotalung, in Wangquo province. If you look at that map with the, all the aggressively beige map. As students, Emma, you're gonna love this. As students of the
I read it.
as students of the cat style. Oh, and Michelle.
Yes, that's why I grabbed my cat.
As students of the cat style of kung fu, monks of this very civilized order train long and hard to develop quickness and agility. But they are also trained in the understanding, the underlying philosophy of the path, as well as the literature and arts of Shou. This makes them clever debaters and gives them a depth of religious understanding uncommon among the Shou priesthood. Okay. So, okay.
Wow.
Okay. The order.
Whoa.
Wait. The order also.
Women.
Yeah.
Women!
What?
Hey!
The order has a large number of women in its ranks, more than any other Shou sect. This is fitting as I Ching is the patron immortal of the sect. Monks of the order are highly prized as advisors, religious counselors, and personal bodyguards to the court. In fact, the abbotess, Yan Yu, Jade Eyes, was once bodyguard to the emperor's mother. The monastery has been heavily endowed by wealthy court patrons and is very beautiful. That's very beautiful. Some might say opulent. That's grammatically very weird. As the order,
It's supposed to be an M dash. They use a short dash.
yeah, oof.
Yeah.
As the order believes that great beauty also serves the path. Travelers and court patrons are very welcome, particularly for the news they bring. Food and lodgings are most pleasant and comfortable.
So like we got a lot of women, but only if they're beautiful.
Also, I'm seeing consistency of food and lodging is at least pleasant and comfortable so far.
I also
Well,
see
yeah.
cat women. I see a lot of cat women happening
Yeah,
here.
cat women. Oh, great.
Is abbotess a real word?
We can Google search that.
Okay.
I mean,
I think it's abbess.
Yeah, I
No,
think it's
abbotess
abbess.
exists. It's a word.
Okay.
Abbess is the common one, though, I think.
Yeah, abbess is the most common one, but abbotess apparently is one as well. It has a weird etymology on it, though.
Abbotess is also just a weird one to say. Abbess is just so much easier.
Yeah, because I think it's the T. Well, I guess because it's an obsolete form of abbess. Yeah, that's why, because it stopped using in the 17th century. Thank you, everybody.
So this is so. On one hand, it's like, hey, women are being represented in this campaign setting. But then on the other hand, it's like, they can only be here if they're beautiful.
But I just want to point out that they actually put women and cats together as if this is just like, this is a thing commonly. And I'm just like, really? Of all the choices?
Yeah, they have to be like nimble, agile.
I guess thankfully they didn't put them with the Cobra one, but geez.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining a monastery full of like Eartha kits, essentially. just a bunch of cat women who are really good debaters as well. Although I don't think it says that. Does it say that the women have to be beautiful?
It doesn't
I thought
say
it was
that
just
the
like
women have to
It
be
doesn't-
beautiful.
so-
It says that they
prize
prize beauty,
beauty.
and there are women.
Yes.
mhm. These
Okay.
these are kind of not precisely mutually exclusive.
Yeah,
But-
they're not
but-
mutually exclusive, but the conjecture is implied
Mhm.
because it's the temple of it has like, oh, women are allowed in this order, therefore
Yeah.
oh, it's the beautiful one. And there's a lot to be said about the fact that it's, what is it, the most civilized order,
The most civilized,
and
yeah.
it's the
Mhm.
one that has, equal representation because it's the most civilized, which goes into a lot of the stereotypes that a lot of Orientalist stereotypes that women are treated really, really poorly
Yeah.
in a lot of like pre-colonial or like pre-colonial or in stereotypical like Asian portrayals are always like, oh, women are portrayed as like terrible or unequal or fetishized or something like that. And while there is a lot to unpack with that, like it's the fact that they're equating like the Western ideal of what civility is with like, oh, this is the best temple. is concerning and problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think-
Also sorry.
No, go
Dan,
ahead, Michelle. No, go ahead, Michelle.
I also just like the abbotess, the fact that she is, her name is Jade Eyes. I mean, it's definitely green eyes is like more of a Western genetic thing, and like the idea that like, is she called Jade Eyes because she has green eyes, or like why? It's there's a lot to unpack there.
Jade Fist would have been so much cooler.
Yeah, Jade
Yeah.
Fist would have been very much cooler. But but like the eyes and them being like green,
Yeah.
I'm guessing like this sort of
Mhm.
there's like this weird trend of like making Asian people look more exotic by giving them like different colored
And
eyes.
I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, but they're like the abbotess Jade Eyes was once the bodyguard to the emperor's mother. Why not just the emperor? I think that would have said more about the Order of the Nimble Hunter. Also, like, are they just the Nimble Hunter because of the cat association? Because there's nothing else about hunting here.
Yeah, I think
like how we
it's the
say that in a
association
cat
with the cat.
butthole.
Well, I mean,
Just
to be
mean.
fair, to be
Whose
fair,
name is
Who's me?
Hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As the cat's butthole nimbly goes across.
Yeah.
Yeah. and as Emma said, Emma's cat is named Hunter.
Yeah.
Yep.
My cat is not nimble.
Good. Can we get the cat's opinion on this? What do they think of the Order
Yeah.
of Nimble Hunter?
I know, right?
I wouldn't ask, but one of my cats is currently very nimbly licking her butthole. So
As cats do.
As cats do.
do. So.
My cat's asleep, so just chilling. I think I feel like Order of the Nimble Hunter is a wasted opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wasted opportunity that very subtly slides into a lot of problematic tropes.
Yeah, and not to they threw in the tropes of like, oh, they're the literary and artsy of all the monastic orders, and they're all conveniently cat ladies, and it's just like I'm like.
Also,
"Oh,
what is
God."
the path? Have we talked about the path?
I think
No,
it might have-
I
but
think did
maybe?
they ever talk about?
Oh,
it in
wait.
Oriental Adventures? That's where it would
No,
be.
we did. The way of the
Yeah.
monk is a narrow way, for he must follow the path. They don't really say
Yeah.
what the path is. I remember we joked about this because it said no matter how narrow the path, it may take many branchings before reaching the destination. So
We were
instead
like,
of
what's the path?
what is the path then if it just goes everywhere?
Well, I guess that's why they're cats, because cats are liquid and they can like fit in very tight spaces and go
Yeah.
along these branches.
But that would
If
but
it
then
fits,
that
I
but
sit.
then
It sits.
but then that has to apply to every monk order. Well, I guess cobras are thin and narrow, so they can go
Yeah,
down
they're
the
also
path.
really-
But bears, the Strongclaw Monastery, bears. How are bears going to go down the path? Well,
They
the
break
bears
down all
fuck
the
up the
walls.
path.
Yeah.
They steal the horse. They tackle the horse. And let the
Tackle the
horse.
horse.
Tackle the horse.
Gotta say though, if your character in D&D is just like strong enough to just tackle horses, that's pretty epic. I will say that's pretty
That's
epic.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's just like your GM's like, oh yes, and these like riders are coming at you. Who says I tackle the horse? Usually it's like, oh, I'm gonna like dodge and get out of the way, or I'll
Actually,
try
that's
to
in my
shoot them.
Actually, that's in my Unbreakable adventure. You have to tackle a horse.
Well, Jacky, you must have read this already.
I
Yeah.
guess I must have unintentionally underlying reasons.
Jacky, is that a Strongclaw Monastery poster behind you in your room? No. Jacky, did you?
Bad action 80s action movie poster of a bear just tackling a horse.
I feel
That
like
would be the
because
best.
that could be a shirt, just like
That
an
would be a
adventure
great shirt.
tackling a
there,
horse.
there is a magic card called Savage Punch where there's
Yes.
a guy
Oh,
just
no.
punching a bear. He
Yeah.
punches a bear, and then
Well,
then they go
it's from
back
their
in time.
It's from their Tarkir set, which is their very Mongolian-inspired setting.
It's like Mongolian, Central Asian,
Central
and there's
Asia,
like Southeast
yeah.
Asian.
Okay, so I will say this: there is a very famous MMA fighter named Habib Nurmagomedov. He's 29-0, one of the greatest fighters ever, and he wrestled bears when he was a kid. And there are videos of him wrestling bear, like a bear cub, and he became a very, very, very prominent Dagestani wrestler. Yeah.
I feel like this is where we're treading into like Vladimir Putin urban legend territory.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Like he only not only rides bears, he wrestles them.
Wrestles bears. Oh.
Just like
Yeah.
you're
Tackles
wrestling a
horses.
bear who's wrestling a horse.
Yeah. I keep thinking there was a metal band called I Wrestled a Bear once. I feel like we need a I Wrestled a Horse once.
I wrestled a horse.
Tackle the horse.
Horse wrestler. Or if we made like if we made like a fake, you know how like colleges in the US have like a wrestling team and they have their wrestling team shirt, we could make like a fake collegiate wrestling team and it's all about wrestling horses. Oh. Or if we made like a jersey and it's just we go to concert and be like, "Whoa, what team is that?" Horse wrestlers.
Just get like a Letterman jacket on the back. It just says like
The most
horse.
expensive Asians represent merch ever. Horse
Yes.
wrestler
Wrestling team.
Letterman jacket.
Letterman jacket.
Okay, but here's
yeah.
the thing: I would 100% buy that.
Me too, 100%.
So buy it and wear it so often, though.
I'm gonna write that down in my merch idea. Horse wrestler.
Horse wrestling. It's just an amorphous monk person just like grabbing, just tackling a horse.
Well, I feel like what we could do, we could make like it would look like a heavy metal like band T-shirt, and it would be horse
Oh
wrestler.
my gosh. Yes.
The silhouette of someone suplexing a horse.
Okay, it could be like our play on like instead of like you know how they have like Jordans and it's like Michael Jordan slam dunking, except
Yeah.
we'd have an adventurer suplexing a horse.
There is another magic card where it's a man suplexing a bear. Just so
Yeah.
you know.
I think
mean,
this
look,
is a,
look in Florida we have people suplexing gators. Look, it's nothing that uncommon.
we'll add that to the list of the list of things we like about Florida.
Florida, yes. My dad.
Okay, so it's key limes, oranges, Michelle's dad, Jacky, and that dude that suplexed a gator.
Gator wrestling, yeah.
Okay,
It's a real thing. They do it a lot.
so let's go to White Crane Temple now.
Right.
Also very narrow.
Okay, this is also the first sentence is just weird. White Crane Temple. The Order of the White Crane is located in Kirin, Hangzhou Province.
Okay.
Okay,
Cool.
So
cool.
putting the Japan in my supposedly Chinese analog.
And then associating the name of a Japanese mythological creature with white crane. They could have put it anywhere else, right?
They
Honestly,
also could have used the Chinese version of the
Qilin.
name. Yeah.
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 Or you know they
Yeah.
could have you know what cool put the Order of the White Crane on a temple in the middle of a lake.
That would have been
Yeah.
nicer.
The imagery would make more sense. The Order's abbot Chang Tui, long legs. I'm
Because
thinking
crane.
I'm thinking about Kung Fu Hustle.
Yes.
Yep.
Hey you, shorty! It stands up.
Stands up.
That's
I'm
the
just
scene.
thinking that it was a missed opportunity for the Order of Silence Abbot to be called No Legs.
Oh god. So long legs maintains the traditions of the White Crane sect, a conservative tradition based on versatility and worship of Shou, the patron immortal. Members of the order are not only skilled in their devotions and kung fu training, but are also physicians, herbalists, astrologers, craftsmen, and historians. Equal time is devoted to the study of the path of enlightenment, the crane style of kung fu, and manual labor. Travelers are gladly offered the same simple sleeping mat, vegetarian fare, and training regime as the monks of the order. Those staying for any length of time greater than a week are required to work. The White Crane style of kung fu is noted for its grace and speed. Its Sohei are masters of two paired weapons, the Jite, Sai, butterfly blades, and nunchaku. That's it.
That's
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, it exists.
Here's the thing.
So they're like, so what about the, okay. I guess they're trying to go on like cranes are like wise and all that. Okay, so I think we're all in this point where we're just kind of baffled by what.
It's
It-
just
It really
there's-
feels like the
there's
most slapstick thing.
Well,
There's
it's like
not a
here's
lot
this.
there.
it's like here they're like very devoted. They do kung fu like every other temple here, right? But then they're also doctors, herbalists, astrologers, craftsmen. But then they say they study the path of enlightenment, they practice kung fu, and they do manual labor, which isn't
Like-
tied to the fact that they're doctors, herbalists, astrologers.
Like that's a
And, like,
lot of that's a
historians.
lot to do in a day-to-day life.
Yeah, these are just very busy crane people led by I'm guessing Giselle Bunchen, who is Longlegs.
Supermodel.
I guess.
But in general, like they've just described essentially a monastery.
Yeah, they did because they do.
Yeah.
There are a lot of roles within an actual monastery.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah,
only thing that's different is they don't sleep in comfortable or pleasant settings.
Yeah.
And they don't eat meat.
vegetarian food.
Yeah. But like all of the other temples have something unique about them, and this one they're just like, here's a temple.
I mean, like in some way, if I squint my eyes, I'm like, okay, I guess if they wanted to make an easy world, like an easy option for people who wanted to make a character backstory but didn't want to feel beholden to like very strict principles of a monk or a monastery or something, then like this is your basic bread option. But it's
Yeah.
not fun. It's not interesting. There's not a lot to comment on. It's
what-
2 paragraphs of nothing.
What do you do here narratively if you're a GM or a player? It's like, let's go to the White Crane Temple, and you're just gonna go there and be like, we'll stay here for a week. Okay, you gotta do manual labor now. It's like, what happens there?
I feel like,
Like-
they could have taken this. I feel like they could have taken the White Crane and done their take on like the White Cranes are like the Candlekeep.
It should
of
have been
the-
Candlekeep. That's what I was gonna say.
That's what I'm saying. This is
Yeah.
what it should have been because
Oh.
it's they're pretty much describing Candlekeep with the exception of except with the outlandish rules that of getting into Candlekeep.
Yeah,
It's
you
like,
have
this is
to.
the opening
yeah.
accepting Candlekeep,
So
which
it's-
I'll be much more happier about.
So for Emma, who doesn't know what Candlekeep is, a Candlekeep
Yeah,
is.
I was just letting that happen.
Yeah, I was also just letting that happen.
Okay,
I'm like,
okay. Michelle and Emma, Candlekeep is a great library, basically in the western part of the D&D world. It's got a very, very exclusive entrance fee. It's got all the knowledge in the realms.
Big
It's
old
the
table
Library of
Harvard.
Alexandria
college.
with a much harder entry.
Yeah,
entry.
it's the Library of Alexandria.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, it's like Harvard, but
It's Library of Alexandria plus Harvard tuition fees.
Yeah, basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
about
yeah.
All
right.
right, yeah.
Yeah, that's
I-
it.
I mean, there is like that one defining thing, which is like they only do paired weapons.
Yeah.
But like, what does that have to do with White Crane? Because they're like
The wings.
this is. They could have said like this is a place.
But
I
but the
think that's
GTA
what
isn't really used as a two-paired weapon though.
So neither is a butterfly blade, really. But okay.
Well, no, I think they mean
Yeah.
butterfly swords. I think they mean butterfly
The swords.
Oh, okay. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
butterfly blade. Like,
No,
the
they
stuff-
don't mean the knife. They don't mean the knife.
They don't mean
I'm
the
like
knife.
the knife. Like,
No,
Walk
well,
around
I
like
think-
that.
it's like, wait around.
I think they don't mean like a ballad song. They mean butterfly swords from because
Yeah.
it's a kung fu
Ah,
weapon.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm just like a GTA isn't usually a two-paired weapon. It's usually just a single weapon.
Also,
Not if you have 2 of them.
not if you have 2 of them. Also, if they were like, yeah, if they were going for like, oh, nunchaku, like iconic wielder of nunchaku, Bruce Lee, single one.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a missed opportunity to essentially have the Asian Candlekeep, but a lot more interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
That's
as
my
it is,
take.
it sounds less like a place that you go to and more just convenient characters if you need like physicians, herbalists, astrologers.
That's
if you
what
need
all of
someone who
these are,
knows
though.
Stuff.
That's what all of these
It's
are,
like,
though.
if I need convenient lore, I go
Yeah.
to the White Crane Temple. If I need
Like-
if I need a resurrection because my party member died, I go to the White Crane Temple.
It's like if I need a
Yeah.
bodyguard, I'll go to the Nimble Hunter, and if I need to bro out, I'll go to Cobra. Like that's it.
If I want to bro out and have really sad moments where I talk about injustices in the world.
Yeah, right.
I also imagine like instead of pigeons, every time someone sits down, they get surrounded by snakes. They just get covered.
Yeah, but see, I do agree. Like the missed opportunity also for the crane temple to not be like next to a lake is just a missed moment.
Such a huge
that would
miss.
have been
Yeah.
that would have been just great.
Because you could have described like, oh yeah, they're on an island, and it's like the air temple in Avatar: Legend of Korra. You know how it's in the middle of a lake, and it's like, oh yeah, to get there you need to go on these boats, and there's a ferry, and there isn't they could have even said it's like a free ferry, and people go and they enjoy this journey over there, and they could describe the scenery, and how maybe the White Crane Temple has these aging defenses from when they were actually at war with people, right? And that's why they're so skilled at fighting, and they maintain these aging defenses because they know that one day they might have to defend themselves again. And so they are very skilled at their own martial arts, and they're not just scholars. Basically, it's the Jedi Temple. It's Jocasta Nu, the character Jocasta Nu, the Jedi archaeologist. Also, if any of you are super into Star Wars and you like the idea of like the aging scholar who could fight, read the Darth Vader comic series. Jocasta Nu wields a lightsaber rifle.
Yeah, it's so cool.
It's so
She's pretty dope.
She's pretty dope. You literally loads her lightsaber as ammo and shoots the weapon until it melts her lightsaber and it's gone. Yep. Super dope.
There was always a thing about how Sidious actually feared Jocasta Nu almost as much as any other Jedi Master.
I'm gonna throw the art for the lightsaber rifle and Jocasta Nu into our chat because
yes, please.
Yeah, it's the coolest thing.
Cool. Real cool.
She's real cool, and Jocasta Nu is the reason why Luke was even able to learn about the Jedi, because she after Order 66, she basically went and like from memory made all of these holocrons, hid them behind a wall that Luke would later find, so he could form his own order.
Yeah, I think throughout the entirety of the Clone Wars, she was the one manning the Jedi archives, and then she preserved all that knowledge. She's just the coolest. And
was she a yellow saber? Because it sounds like yellow saber stuff.
She should have been if she wasn't.
I feel like she was, but let me confirm, because we are going to do a Star Wars episode, by the way. God. She's a blue lightsaber. She's a blue lightsaber.
Oh yeah, she was blue.
Okay. But if with all the archival stuff, she should have been yellow. I don't know. I feel like
Sentinel.
Well, I feel like she's
with the Order Sentinels. So
well, I feel like since there are like the Temple Guard use yellow lightsabers, I think they want to distinguish Jocasta Nu from the Temple Guard by having a blue lightsaber.
Specifically, only Temple Guards, I think, in the era of the Clone Wars used the yellow lightsabers. I think there was discontinued.
There's only one other character who uses yellow lightsabers, and it's Asajj Ventress, but it's only in the Dark Disciple book.
But it's a good book.
It's a super good book. Made that character so much more interesting. Sorry, the chat, I have to answer this. Joe Kerr just asked, if she were to show up in The Mandalorian, who would you cast as her? She wouldn't show up in The Mandalorian because she gets killed by Vader.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to come back from that.
Yeah, she gets killed by Vader.
To be fair, that's expanded universe, so...
No, that's the Vader comic. That's canon.
It's canon.
That's canon.
That's from the new canon Vader comics.
Yeah, which are super good.
Mind.
Yeah, the lightsaber rifle is also canon. There's flashbacks. It's possible that Jocasta Nu is the one, I haven't watched the new Mandalorian, who saves the child, and I won't go any further because I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But anyways, let's get into Order of the Dragon Monastery. We'll do a Star Wars episode, and Jacky, you should be on the Star Wars episode of the wrap up.
Yes,
we're gonna do
I'll be for that one.
So, Order of the Dragon Monastery, the largest and best known monastery in Shou. This order is home of the dragon form of Kung Fu. Each new year, the monastery hosts a great martial arts competition open to all orders within the Shou priesthood. Bloodsport. The current abbot of the order, Iron Hand. Notice how they didn't give Iron Hand an Asian name.
Yeah, they just literally decided to say Iron Hand. It's like,
you mean Iron Fist?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Mm,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
When did Iron Fist as a character first appear?
the 60s, I believe,
Really?
because its power guy, which is Luke Cage, and Iron Fist were a comic duo for a majority of the run.
1970s.
74.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
this
it was
is
like
they,
late 60s or 70s.
so at least they made Iron Fist Asian. So bonus
Yes.
to points to them.
They didn't
At least
give
he
him a
started
name.
Asian.
They
I
didn't give
should
him a
say.
name though, so he lacks identity. But hey, Iron Fist is Asian. We got what we wanted. We had
Did
we just
we
had
though?
but we
At
just
what
had to go to
cost?
but we had to
At
go to
what cost?
Kara-Tur. But we had to go to Kara-Tur to do it. Okay, so the current abbot of the order, Iron Hand, aka Iron Fist, won this competition 7 times running. Although this occurred many years ago, he is a solid, thoughtful man with piercing eyes and a calm, friendly demeanor. However, he detests dishonesty and has an active dislike of the nobility, whom he views as self-seeking thieves. Sounds like the Cobra.
I was gonna say it
Yeah.
sounds like it sounds like Iron Fist or Iron Ham, sorry, has a lot to connect with the Order of Silence.
But every single order is welcome in the competition. So I wonder. Just a quick scan shows that they don't talk about the Order of Silence here. So missed opportunity. The monastery's close location to the capital, and its strong ties to the court have given the order a great deal of prestige. Dating back to the early Cao dynasty, the actual monastery grounds predate the construction of the city of Kuo-Tulung and have grown continuously over the past centuries. The buildings are of yellow brick with red tile roofs and ramble over the length of breadth of the order's hilltop properties. The largest building is a 4-story temple to the patron immortals Chan Cheng and Fa Quan. The life of a monk here is fairly traditional, if lighter in manual labor and heavier in comforts than more conservative orders would approve of. Okay. Besides providing teachings for all classes of students, the monks also maintain farms, copy rare manuscripts, and go among the people to heal the sick and injured. In wartime, the Sohei monks of the Dragon Order are invaluable defenders of the Emperor and serve with distinction in the army of the kingdoms. The Sohei are famed for their use of the naginata and halberd. Many have become members of the Imperial Guard and serve as both religious teachers and protectors within the walls of the Imperial Palace. Because the Order of the Dragon is in the largest city of Shoulong, with all manner of hostelries and sanctuaries, it is unlikely that it will be used by travelers. In the court, the Sohei monks present will often, 30%, be of this order, and that in any conflict between sects, they will automatically do what they feel is correct to protect the person or will of the imperial family. Do not ask a monk of the dragon to do something treasonous or seditious. He will kill you and atone for it later. Okay. That's a weird tonal shift. You notice that? It's like very matter of fact. It's like, do not. The monastery and temple settings offer a wide variety of possible adventures. Monks may join forces with imperial soldiers to fight military threats. They can wander aimlessly across Shoulong, seeking enlightenment and incidentally fighting monsters, evil brigands, and corrupt officials. Okay, there's a lot to talk about.
Wow.
Well, here's the thing. They're like these scholars, but the Order of the Nimble Hunter, they just said they have one of the best knowledges of all the religion, right? They said that they're bodyguards, but then also aren't the Nimble Hunter prized for being personal bodyguards of the court? Also, then, Emma, you'll notice that they bring in the Japanese weapons, Oriental Adventures. Nothing is super unique about the dragon, yet they put the most effort into actually trying to flesh them out.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there is maybe a little bit of implication here that perhaps like the Order of the Nimble Hunter is more like personal bodyguards, whereas like these monks of the dragon are like more military, like more like
Significance.
foot soldiers. Yeah,
Right. Like they actually will.
Yeah.
They have their own because they have their own position.
Yeah, they're
and
like the
rank
royal
in the
guard, I
army.
guess.
Yeah.
yeah.
They could have talked about how this clan, or this monastery, I should say, is at odds with the Order of Silence.
Yeah,
Because the
it
Order of
seems
Silence
like
are
a
corrupt.
Yeah,
Right.
and also the Order of Silence was never fully recognized by the government. So
Mm-hmm.
there is definitely a big setup here, like a showdown between the Order of the Cobra and the Order of the Dragon.
Yeah.
And it feels like because like the Order of the Cobra had like this earlier bit about like, well, they started out as these people who were out to fight injustices, and it's like, well, it kind of fits with what the dragon really wants to do too. And it feels like you could have had a nice, like, they had an understanding and then there was a separation because things broke down, and the Cobra eventually started not following up with what they originally held their ideals, and that could have been great. We could have had a great clash there and a good hook for the both of them.
Yep. Also, what if I told you that you had a wide variety of potential adventures, but you could either fight military threats or wander aimlessly until you can fight things? What would you pick? Because that's what they say at the end.
Yeah. That whole wander aimlessly thing is like,
It's wander aimlessly. It's like it's the murder hobo thing of D&D,
Yep.
Yeah.
except with the added layer of you're seeking enlightenment.
It reminds me of like like Newtonian physics, where it's like an object in motion will stay in motion unless something tries to impede it. That's kind of how you are as a wandering murder hobo hero. You're just kind of like, oh, I find something to fight.
Yeah, and that's not exclusive to Kara-Tur. That's
Yeah.
D&D in
Yeah.
general.
We did
Mhm.
good murder tourism.
Murder tourism.
Yes.
Maybe
Yeah.
we'll see that.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah, I feel like the dragon is uninteresting. I wish they had put that much detail into some of the other ones. Like, I feel like the White Crane could have used some real work over there. Because I think so we've looked at Dragon Monastery, White Crane, Nimble Hunter, Silence, Strong Claw. Now that we're at the end of the monasteries, I want to know what's everyone's favorite.
I mean,
I think it's purely for the joke, the wrestling bears one.
Oh yeah.
The wrestling, like, the
Oh,
wrestling
yeah, for
horses
sure.
one.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just because of the joke, I think I still think that like the Order of Silence could have been super cool, and there was a lot of potential there. And so like I don't know how to word this, but like it's my favorite, not because I like how it's presented, but I think it has a cool concept, and God, I wish it was done better.
I agree.
Oh yeah. I agree.
I agree that the Strong Claw clan is probably my favorite, although cats, I mean Nimble Hunter. I'm like, yeah, cats. But the naive campiness of the Strong Claw monks just like tackling horses like their football teams is pretty great.
Well, I also think it would be really cool because it's like you go to the Strong Claw and you just see all of these like really, really like ripped Asian people just like tackling horses in a field glistening with sweat.
Oh my gosh,
I think you
yes.
could, I'm just like,
Yes.
woo. I think you could do a lot with that.
Yeah, you can get
can.
yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And then the adventurers say like, why did we spend so much time at that frat house hanging out with those monks with the cobras?
Right. Well, I think I think it feels funny because like the Strong Claw is like technically the first order you probably will meet going from entering Kara-Tur from like the western part of the region, and then you reach out and find out all the rest of them, because I think
Yeah, because
I'm guessing
they're
that
in the map. They're in that
Yeah.
one particular region where you enter through the mountains.
right. So like they're your first one, and it's just like, so you gave us the hot, like really like chiseled Asians. Thanks, I appreciate that.
Is it the himbo order? Is that
Yes.
the
Himbo order? That's what it is. That's what it is.
Big order.
I think
Nothing but beef.
we gotta make these horse wrestler like jersey T-shirts. Like we gotta make that.
We can get Steve. Steve lifts, right? Like we can get
Yeah.
Steve.
we do a photo shoot. We could do a photo shoot.
Just like
God.
bicep curls. With, like,
Oh my god, this
horses.
this could be the
It's-
D&D
They're
fitness
cults,
merch.
They're bicep curls of cults. Just
This is
Yeah,
the D&D
it's like,
fitness merch, just like horse wrestlers. Oh.
God.
I'm gonna find
No.
I'm gonna find a graphic designer and artist to design a
We need like
shirt.
little enamel
that.
pins.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, we need an enamel pin for that.
Ooh. But
Yeah.
okay, I will say though, our idea of like athletic and like very very attractive Asian people wrestling horses as your first art, it's like that kind of undermines a lot of the stereotypes people have of Asian characters. It's kind of neat.
And they also
Yeah.
say they're super welcoming of
Yeah.
travelers. So it's
Mhm.
just like
As long as they don't come on horses.
And it's
Yeah,
just like
that's
it's just
true.
like what's
You're
up?
coming in a horseback. It's like, "Fwah."
They kind of flip their hair and they're like, sorry, I just finished wrestling this horse.
The horse is,
Welcome.
like,
Help you.
also really buff and like totally fine with it.
Welcome to the Strong Claw Monastery.
It's like the volleyball scene in Top Gun where everyone's like
Oh my
super
God, yes.
volleyball.
But it's all
And he
Asians.
launches blades over the hills.
I think there's some cool stuff you could do there.
Oh, I,
I think
love
that
it. Yeah.
sums up the entire monk section. There's some cool stuff you could do there.
Yeah, there's some
They
cool
just
stuff you
didn't
could
do
do there.
anything with them.
It wasn't done, but you know.
You
Yeah.
know,
But if you really,
Could've
the
been.
only cool thing, like, just join the Strongclaw Monastery.
Yeah,
You're
clearly.
the coolest.
Those are
Yeah.
You
the
don't get
coolest.
attacked by snakes, and you get to wrestle horses. Like,
get to wrestle horses. Everyone's pretty welcoming, and yeah, it seems cool. And I feel like they also take care of the horses, and they're not just like
Mhm.
hurting the horses. They're like, it's okay, horse. We just wrestled. It's all good.
I also just look back. The order accepts both male and female novices. So you
Mhm.
know, it's one of the
There we go,
two.
Strong Claw. It's the most. It's
Yeah.
one of the more inclusive ones.
It has a lot of personality.
It does.
I don't appreciate like the coded aggression against like
Yeah, there are some.
Yeah.
There's some changes. I think our vision of the Strong Claw as like
yeah,
You know-
we're kind of making some things up here, but for the most
Yeah.
part it definitely
we're-
has the most personality. And
we're extrapolating a lot.
And they also
Yeah.
are intellectuals too, so they don't just they're not just like they don't just wrestle horses. They also study. They
They
work their
hold up.
bodies, their
So
bodies,
basically,
and their
basically
minds.
And
they're
their
not like full
minds.
himbos. They're like the ideal like nerdy jock, and you're just like, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like,
Teach
and then when
me.
they just like pull down like an anatomy chart of a horse, it's just
See,
like,
I
oh,
came
right,
from a
we can go
magnet
for the
school, so
horse.
even the jocks had high IQs too. So it was just like, oh, so this is what it's like to have perfection. Okay.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
this is
God.
They're also really nice.
I like
Yes,
how
they're
this has
welcoming.
become
They're also
wish
super nice.
fulfillment central.
so okay.
Like, yes,
so-
we want this.
So we have two merch ideas. We have like the horse wrestlers as like a collegiate sort of wrestling shirt, and then we have like the crab shrimp clan pin. Ooh,
Yeah.
there's so much to do here. Anyways,
I think someone in chat was like, "Can we have a shrimp
oh,
suplexing a horse?"
I think we need to get art of Agatha's shrimp knight character
Mm.
rest suplexing a horse, and then Steve, of course, appears in chat and is like, "Did someone say nerdy jocks?"
Yeah. We'd probably get in trouble with branding, but you could also do a White Claw style Strong Claw
Oh, strong
thing.
claw. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh god, like like a beer koozie or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
That'd be so cool.
It's like
Strong
a
claw
horse.
bear. Yeah, like oh, that would be so
It'd
good.
be like a horseshoe with like 3 lines over it to have like the claw.
So one of the
Yeah.
interesting things is that like we signed a non-exclusive merch deal with Heart of the Deernicorn, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. And I was like, oh, are we gonna? One idea was like we do because we have the New Asians Represent logo, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's the noodle dragon. We literally have like a little dragon eating noodles, like a bowl of noodles.
Oh, that's so cute though.
We could do that.
Oh yeah.
We could do that, and we could do horse wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
I love this. Horse wrestlers of Kara-Tur. Like, just.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can.
I don't
legally
need
use
Kara-Tur.
I don't know if we
You don't need
Kara-Tur.
the core
Okay,
Kara-Tur.
just like horse wrestling.
We could just like
Yes.
horse wrestling, and then we could just say like we could call it like Strong Claw University horse wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're gonna call you horse wrestling varsity.
Yes.
Varsity
Strong
horse
Claw,
wrestler.
Strong Claw University. I'm gonna write this down. Varsity horse wrestling.
It says varsity. It has to say varsity because you just gotta make it.
It has to be varsity. Yeah.
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 Sign me up for this merch, please.
Because then it makes you think about like
Hold up.
what's non-varsity.
Hold up. This is
like
This is what? So I
there's a good one. Horse wrestling pinup calendar.
oh my god.
Strong Claw horse wrestling.
Okay,
calendar.
hold up. So I just searched horse wrestling, and there is a traditional
Yeah.
there's a traditional Kyrgyzstan sport called Enish, and it's equestrian horse wrestling. It's horseback wrestling. This is a thing.
Yep.
So you wrestle each other on horseback,
Off of the horse.
Off the horse.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but you're not
Sounds
wrestling the
about right.
horse.
But you're not wrestling the horse,
Yeah.
but that's still pretty epic.
That's still
Yeah.
really cool.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
oh my god.
It's great. And there's
Horse
also horse
wrestling?
wrestling in Spain too, apparently.
Damn.
What do
Okay.
we not wrestle?
I don't like the fact that I googled this and I have like people also search for monkey wrestling, deer wrestling, and llama wrestling.
The llama one I can
Why?
understand, but the
Oh, yeah,
deer one
llamas are
makes me
terrifying.
concerned.
I think in Canada we have goose wrestling. You lose every single time. Oh. Okay, so we got
You don't ever win against the Canadian goose.
So do we want to start diving into government and politics? We've got time.
I
time.
could.
We-
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's start it at least.
Let's start
Forward
it.
movement. Keep going.
We have some momentum. Government and politics. Great is the government of Shou. Great in its scope, grand in its execution, magnificent in its justice and adaptability. The citizens of Shou Lung owe their ultimate allegiance to the Emperor. He is the Son of Heaven and the divine gate to the celestial sphere. The symbol of the eternal empire, he is wise, just, and merciful to those who oppose his command. Under him, the bureaucracy and the court exist only as agents of his will. The emperor chooses his own successor from those he deems most suitable, usually the eldest sons of his bloodline, but often a daughter if no son is available. He may choose to resign his high office and return to private life, but this is most rare. For behind each emperor rests the fate of a dynasty. And in a land where ancestors are worshipped as near gods, even the Son of Heaven must honor the traditions and deed of those who came before him. Okay, so they're playing on like the Chinese mandate of heaven, and it's, the passing on of succession to sons. They're just basing this on Chinese history. I think the interesting part is like, oh yes, I'm just gonna give up the mandate of heaven and retire.
You really can't.
You really can't.
No.
Or
Be-
you can see how people even now reacted to when the Emperor of Japan abdicated.
Yep.
Yep.
I think
So, like, a lot of people reacted very strongly to that, despite the fact that monarchy and whatever now, it's like not as big of a deal.
I mean, it's a
Yeah.
huge deal. What about Thailand? In Thailand, remember when they
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
huge deal. And in Jordan, they have a king as well. His propaganda is very interesting in that country.
Oh yes. Didn't he appear on episode of Star Wars? No, Star Trek.
Star Trek.
Like,
He's a
while
huge
back.
Trekkie.
Yeah.
But
He's a huge Trekkie.
we used to have play this drinking game in on the field team I was on. At the end of every dig season, we would go to like a club and we would pre-drink, but we'd play this game called Kings, and we'd write down all of the different forms of King Abdullah propaganda we would see. And it's like king with wife, king with kids, and then it would be a certain number of drinks. And I kid you not, one of them was king with sniper rifle. And there is propaganda of the king of Jordan. He just got this big sniper rifle and he's
Sniper
aiming
rifle,
it,
yep.
and that's it.
Yep.
And there's also
I've
king
seen
with
it.
rocket launcher.
Yep.
Excellent.
But I think the thing here, the big thing about this Mandate of Heaven section is that they've taken the Son of Heaven title and they've divorced it from Shou Lung religion. Right? The belief
Yeah.
in the Mandate of Heaven is very much a religious thing and is a part of the Chinese understanding of the divine. And it's not really a title that you can just give up, right? It's something that you can lose because the mandate of heaven can be lost by the leader of China if things go bad for the country. So like famine, plague, floods are all signs that the gods want a new leader of humanity. But they haven't put that nuance into this. It's just like, oh, Son of Heaven is a title. And, you can resign if you want. But that's really not how it works.
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that because of how the Faerunian cosmology works, and so that's why it couldn't work the same way. That's why they ended up divorcing it. But then it makes the whole thing feel kind of a moot point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like it just really takes away a lot from the inherent the things that matter for the heavenly mandate. So
yeah, it's like they've made this digestible in a way where you can understand it within the context of European kings and queens. But in China, it's different.
Yeah,
They've
it
taken the
reads more-
cosmic side away from it.
It reads almost more like the Pope, basically. Like it like when I was reading it, I was thinking like, oh, this is just like when Pope Ratzenberg decided to step down, and now we have Pope Francis, and it's sort of this weird kind of demarcation between the divine choosing of the next person to lead the church, but then the previous one can just step down, and so you have like kind of it's strange, and that's how I feel about this too.
Yeah. Again, a missed opportunity to really highlight a unique way of viewing the leader of China.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
let's.
it's just-
Go ahead.
just real quick, it's just one of those things where it's like, because I know part of this is to point out, what we can learn from this that we can do better in the future, right? And so this is a really good example of people trying to adapt real world, a real world understanding of like nobility and religion to a fantasy setting, and when you do that, you have to take into account like all factors and all context of that real world precedent, and make sure it's done respectfully in a way that adapts it for that fantasy setting while not losing what makes it so meaningful to the people that
Mm-hmm.
are actually believe or are affected by it. And I think
Mhm.
that's something really important for people to, as they're building their own worlds and basing things off real cultures and histories and stuff, to make sure to look into that history and don't take it off like the surface, and really look into why people believed what they did, why certain things were the way they were in that society. And it's important to remember to respect and build with conscientiousness.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
it's just a matter of like, and I know that there are going to be people who are watching this and like, look, they had a small writing team, minimal budget. I get that. But even with a small writing team, you can take time to do research, because this book came out a couple of years after Oriental Adventures came out. But anyways, I want us to kind of start reading The Emperor, because there's something in there that's very relevant to the current D&D discourse. So, Emperor Kai Cao Shou Qin. That's like four names, Chinese culture. Okay, sure. 10th level samurai / noble. We already talked about that, so we don't need to dwell on that. But here's the thing. Lawful good, human male, with 1/4 Henga Yokai blood.
Yeah, I read the Henge Yokai.
I saw that.
Okay.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Okay, so in
'Cause I know
Oriental Adventures...
yokai and yeah.
So
okay.
in Oriental Adventures, they had Henga Yokai, and they're basically like shape-changing
Shapeshifter,
animal,
yeah.
like human-animal
Yeah.
hybrids. It's very much like a Japanese thing. They in AD&D they portray them as like a fox person,
Yeah, like the kitsune kind of individual. Okay.
kind of similar,
Yeah.
yeah. And so what I found interesting about this is that they've said, here we go, the current leader of Shoulong is a human with 1/4 Henga Yokai blood. So what does that mean in D&D? Because right now we're just like, you're either like a full human or you're half this, half that, right? But now we see, like, we have a human male with 1/4 Henga Yokai blood. What does that mean from a narrative perspective? Does he have Henga Yokai abilities? But also, as a player, I'm like, oh, if you could have 1/4 Henga Yokai blood, how can I do that too?
But also, is that a desirable thing? Like, is that supposed to be a plot point where it's just like, oh, don't know about?
Yeah, and then
Henga Yokai.
we'll see what this means, right? But I think what's interesting is that this is the first time that I've seen something in D&D where they've said that, you know, there's a mixed character, but on the way that mixed characters have currently been or usually portrayed in D&D. It's usually like, I am half human or half something, half orc, because they always say half orc, right? Half elf, but half, what's the other half? But this is like the child of like a couple, like a generation down. So it's just an interesting thing to think about, because I wonder how you could possibly do that in D&D. I would love for that, given our most recent conversation on Tasha's. But anyways, in his middle 50s, the Emperor Kai Sao Shou Qin truly lives up to his name of Rebuilder of the Dragon. He is a tall, powerfully built man with the stature and character of his mountain ancestors. Calm, slow to anger, and thoughtful, he rules with a firm hand over the mighty empire, its sprawling bureaucracy, and its contentious nobles and priests. Under his directives, the navy and armies have been rebuilt, and there is a peace with Wa and Kozakura. His gathering of the pearls has recovered much of what previously weak emperors have lost. Kai Qin faces many obstacles in his reign. Chief among these is the opposition of the Mandarinate to his policies of reform. The addition of science and alchemy to the traditional ministries is viewed with alarm, as are his policies of eliminating corrupt officials and replacing them with new blood. He has angered the nobles by refusing to allow new fiefs and properties to be taken from peasant lands, and the official faith of the empire faces a great schism, which he must somehow heal over in the coming years. Kai Qin's empress and 2 concubines have provided him with a total of 8 heirs, including 3 fine sons in direct line of succession. His daughters are both clever and accomplished, sharing the same great beauty as their mothers. At present, his greatest family problems have been the recent kidnapping of his next to youngest daughter and his eldest son's enraged reaction upon learning that Princess Mei Ling was secretly involved in a romantic liaison with the younger prince of Tulung. Let's talk about that last paragraph.
Wow.
So they're like, okay, so the emperor has a wife and 2 concubines who have no identity here. No identity, no names, nothing. They're just here to give him heirs. And he has 3 very fine sons. And he has daughters. They're clever and accomplished, but are also very beautiful, like their mothers.
Very important.
Yes.
They're pretty.
And they get kidnapped. And they get kidnapped. And his son is very upset that one of the princesses is having a romantic affair with a young prince from a different Asian nation.
So, like, all the drama is because of them.
All the drama is because of them.
It's like there's all this, and then like C drama.
Yeah,
And I was like,
exactly.
This is a C drama, but really poorly written.
I just also, I find it hilarious in just a sad way that, what is it? The kidnapping of a daughter is placed directly next to, oh, and the prince is angry that I can't tell if it's
his sister. I think it's his sister.
Yeah.
His sister is in love with another prince, with a prince from another nation. Whoa! Also, one of the daughters is kidnapped. You know, same
whatever.
same
But is it
level
the same
of.
daughter?
Yeah,
That's my question. Is it the same daughter?
No, I don't.
I think that's different daughters.
No, because
There's a comma.
Because
comma,
they-
you're right. So it's actually 2 different incidences. Okay, wow.
But we also
That's why I'm
don't know
like, it's
enough
so
about them.
weird.
We don't know enough about them because they don't say
But
the
we
names.
couldn't name the next to youngest daughter. Like we gave a name to another princess, but we can't give a name to the next to youngest.
There are 5 daughters. Only one of which has a name, and the other one has been kidnapped. The other three just don't exist.
But the question is, does anyone know who kidnapped her? Does anyone know, like, why?
Yeah,
No, that's for you,
is that
the
supposed
GM.
to be like a plot hook
Yeah.
or something?
That I can if I squint I can understand it.
If I squint, I
I'm
can
not fond
understand
of it.
Yeah.
I'm
But
not-
if they
yeah.
wanted to create plot points, why don't they list something for each of the children?
Yeah.
Other than the one son being angry because his sister likes someone. Like, come
Yeah,
on.
it's just again, it's like they don't have they're for the most part unnamed.
Yep.
And they are talked about within the context of their beauty and their ability to make children for the emperor.
You know,
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
go.
Just
That's how you do.
because they start off with some interesting stuff. It's like, oh yeah, he's like calm, slow to anger, thoughtful, you know, and then they kind of go to like, and then he's like slowly being undermined by all of these people, and oh wait, science and alchemy are viewed with alarm, even though like if you think about it, science and alchemy in ancient China was very
Yeah.
prominent.
Yes.
Yeah, it really was.
It was like the backbone of medicine and like navigation and stuff. Like
And astrology and everything else. Like, we got the calendar from it.
Yeah, or
It's-
even if you think about like the first Qin emperor who was like dying and sent people all over to find the secret to immortality so he could live. And like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're taking this whole idea of like suspicion of science and alchemy, and they're kind of taking sort of the European idea of like, well, how is this going to clash with fantasy magic in D&D? And they're just taking that over to China, where
I think
magic
there's-
is seen as the science.
I think there's also like the underlying Orientalist stereotype of like, you know, science is Western and civilized, and so we must bring it to the uncivilized Asians because they do not like it and they refuse to believe in it, and therefore they are uncivilized and in need of saving.
Yeah.
yes,
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
but they're not as enlightened. I mean, they're trying, but they're not as enlightened.
But they're doing it the
because-
wrong
They're
way.
trying because all they're
Yeah,
doing is
Yay,
they're
colonialism.
Yeah.
they're doing enlightenment the wrong way because they're constantly getting distracted as they go for these wanderings by monsters and brigands and
Having their daughters kidnapped.
yeah.
and or
and
in
having
love
all
with
your
the wrong
monk
people.
orders being in having constant infighting.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, oh, we have this really cool, thoughtful leader, and then it's just like, oh, he can't keep everything, he can't maintain order, and his family is a mess. And it's just like that isn't the only way to make an interesting leader of a nation, right?
Yeah.
This is also like just a really poor way of, you know, showing that there are women in your world, right? In the first, in 2 pages, so we have pages 6 and 7, we have seen more mentions of women than in all of Oriental Adventures. That entire book.
To be fair, it's a really low bar.
It's a super low
really
bar.
low bar.
It's a really low bar.
Women, they exist.
Except they're
Underground.
only they can only be like cat ladies.
Yep.
It
Yep.
could be part of strong claw himbos.
Oh yeah, you know what? That's true. They can be strong claw. Gotta do the strong claw.
Yeah, we gotta do that.
Asians represent fans. When we meet each other, we go strong claw. I think it's 3 claws, strong claw. Oh my god, it's come to this.
when cons become a thing.
When cons become a thing.
Gonna
Yeah, when
haunted
cons
by
become a
this.
thing again.
We're gonna be haunted by this one episode.
Look, when cons become a thing, we're gonna have like. Okay, we're gonna have like Strong Claw University varsity horse wrestling shirts. It's gonna be a thing.
Yes.
It's gonna
It's so
confuse
great.
like anyone else who like meets someone.
Oh,
They'll
I
be
can't
like,
wait.
"What?"
I can't wait. It's just everyone's gonna look. I just want to see the reaction. That's really what I want.
I can't wait for people to buy this merch thinking that it's just like Kara-Tur fans. If people buy it for that reason. You're a fan of the Strong Claw Monastery? Yeah, I am too, totally. Huge fan.
Yeah,
So into it.
Sure, honey. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sweetheart.
Okay,
honey,
so
no.
we have our merch ideas. That being said, we are out of time. And I think ending on the Emperor is like a good stopping point, because following this, we're going to talk about the Mandarinate, the Chancellors, and the rest of the. Yeah.
Oh boy!
Yeah. Oh boy. So we will be back in the new year with more Kara-Tur. We're back in the new year with more Kara-Tur. We're actually going to be, hey, get this, January 2nd. So the first week of January, just after New Year's, we're going to do this. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait.
Kara-Tur 2021.
Kara-Tur
New
2021.
Year, same Orientalism.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
That being said, I want to thank you folks. I'm so glad we got to do this because we missed last month. I missed chatting with all of you. I think this was my favorite episode. This is my favorite one because I think there were just so many jokes, but also so much bad stuff to talk about. I'm excited for what's to come. If you folks are watching this live, thank you for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube or listening to it in audio format on our podcast feed, we appreciate you. I wanted to let you all know that we have a new series every single Friday. Agatha, Steve, and myself host The Wrap Up, which is our new sort of fast news discussion show. The first episode will be coming to our YouTube channel and potentially our podcast feed very soon. We talked about race, D&D, and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Since we only do this monthly, I want to make sure that everybody knows who y'all are, because y'all are awesome. Let's start on the overlay. We'll go Michelle, Jacky, Emma, and then Makenzie. Michelle, what do you do? Everyone should follow you, but tell people why.
Thank you. Yes. Hi, I'm Michelle Rapp, aspiring horse suplexer. Ceramicist.
Please add that to your Twitter bio, please.
No, this is definitely no. I'm changing my title to like Sealy Queen and Queen of Seals to just strong Clara horse wrestler.
Division 1 horse wrestler.
Yes, Division 1
yes.
horse wrestling.
Division 1 horse wrestling.
Olympic gold medal horse wrestler. So you can find me on Twitter at Kiln Fiend Potter. That's KILN Fiend Potter. I'm a ceramicist. I'm an artist. I do a lot of geeky nerd art stuff. I also am on the Lore Voice, which is a Magic the Gathering Vorthos comedy podcast. I also write for Card Kingdom. And yeah, you can basically follow me on Twitter, where I yell at the world and expect nothing back from the void.
Your Twitter is pretty fantastic, and I hope
Thank you.
I hope you eventually finish that giant donut you're eating.
No, I've passed it on to my partner. He has a metabolism
Tap out.
of everything. Like, self-care is very important this year, so I take pride in that. So don't overeat, especially big donuts.
Especially
The
big
benefits,
matcha
the
matcha
benefits
donuts.
of a
Big
romantic
matcha Oreo.
partnership. You can
Yes.
hand off your giant donut to them. Here, take it,
Yes.
please, God.
Yeah, like find yourself a partner who will take your giant matcha donut leftovers.
Oh my God. Well, we'll make sure we bring you on when we do like a relationships and romance episode.
Oh,
We'll talk-
yeah.
Jacky, how about you? I know you got some stuff going on too.
Yes, I do. Hi, everybody. I'm Jacky. You can follow me on Twitter at DeathByMage. I am a freelance tabletop RPG writer and editor. I do a lot of different things, but the primary big thing I'm working on right now is I am the creative lead for Unbreakable. We're just featuring all the Asian stories written by Asian writers and Asian artists. And Daniel was great and was in volume 1. We have so I will announce it here, and we will eventually start announcing it sooner than later. But in
Exclusive.
2021, we are announcing that there are going to be several volumes of Unbreakable coming out. We're featuring indie RPG systems, and we're also featuring D&D 5e. So be on the lookout for that. It is going to be a big year for Unbreakable and for a lot of the people who signed up for it. So we are going to have a big blowout for it. And yes, if you haven't noticed, for those of them, for our writers and readers and everybody in there, yes, we are basically almost producing the same amount of quality as a high-end publisher on a really small team.
2021. There's some light in 2021. Let's go to you, Emma. What have you got going on?
Yeah. That's always a question. So yeah, I'm Emma. You can find me on Twitter at Starcheologist. I am an archaeologist who uses starch to reconstruct foodways in Japanese prehistory. So that's kind of my deal. I also am fascinated with the intersection of pop culture and the past and use of prehistory and history in popular media. So I will be teaching a class about that. Unfortunately, people can't just randomly join, but if you are interested, I could easily talk about these things.
And that class is at the
Okay.
University of Toronto.
University of Toronto, yeah. Varsity horse wrestling team.
Varsity horse wrestling team.
Please wear that shirt to one of the lectures you teach.
I gotta.
If I have it, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get this. This is gonna happen. I'm gonna get this made.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna do this. Okay.
Yes.
Now
Hoodies.
hoodies. Yeah. We'll do like mugs, hoodies. Everything. Pens. I don't know. Emma, you also work as a cultural consultant and sensitivity reader.
I do.
As well, so if you're
recent addition to things I do. But yeah, in my brief time in TTRPG, I've really started to like doing sensitivity reading and cultural consultancy. I find it very rewarding and interesting.
And you've done some D&D stuff now. You have a D&D sensitivity read for a Japanese product under your belt now. Way to go.
I do. Thanks.
All right, and then Makenzie, what about you?
Hi, so I'm Makenzie DeArmas. I'm over at Makenzie Lane DA on Twitter. I'm a D&D designer and writer. I've got a couple projects coming out with MCDM very shortly. I have stuff coming out on their Patreon as well as with Kingdoms and Warfare. But most importantly, I was the lead writer for The Islands of Sina Una, which is a 5e setting based around pre-colonial Filipino culture and mythology. You can get that. You can get that right now over on thedeckofmany.com. You can buy the PDF right now, and you can also still pre-order the hardback, which will be delivered hopefully January 2021. That's what we're hoping. It was super awesome working with that team. We talk a lot about doing research and conscientious world building throughout this series while we read this, and I cannot stress enough how amazing our team of researchers for Sina Una was, and how diligent they were in doing that research. And it's hard to make a really good setting based on real world cultures and doing it respectfully, and I have the utmost respect for all those people who were involved and I had the pleasure of working with.
That's fantastic. Y'all are changing the game. So proud to be able to do all of this with you folks. There was a typo on our overlay, so if you're watching the video or if you watch us live on Mackenzie's handle, I fixed it, but again, it's Makenzie Lane DA. I've put it in our chat. It will also be in the description to the video. Y'all are awesome. Thank you for joining me. I'm so happy we were able to get through all these like kung fu monasteries.
Yeah.
And especially now that we have a merch idea finally. So yeah.
Horse wrestling.
Yeah, so like
Wrestling.
go Strong Claw University. We'll see all of you January 2nd for our next character stream. I can't wait. 2021's happening. And y'all are great. Bye everyone.
Yeah.
Strong Claw.